Pretty cold in Australia, wow. I didn't think that happened there. Or maybe it's cold to you, yeah? This is a subjective experience. So it's very hot to me here, but it might not be that hot to you. And it's very cold there, but it might not be that cold to me. This is the ultimate, this is the subjectivity of the two-ness, yeah? Can't get out of that as a body. That subjectivity. Our cold is boiling. Yeah, that's right. So it's really hot here in Toronto, but that's cold to you in Oz. And I bet you cold to you is like real hot. It's probably hotter than it is here right now. That is the subjectivity of the body. Yeah, this is like a factory of perception in many ways. This subjectivity is perceiving events and objects from its own conditioning. So mine is conditioned from a Canadian's perspective, and yours is conditioned from an Australian perspective. And those perspectives will perceive and interpret from that stance. That's great. So this is the thing, you're not in that, yeah? This is what gets negated in this message, is this two-ness. Because there is this sense of subjectivity going on in the body. And for it to have a sense of subjectivity, it's going to push that subjectivity onto objects. That is two-ness in its all of its glory. So this message essentially saying is you are not of what is pointing out as two-ness, yeah? So the subjectivity here, taking the objectivity of the heat outside, that's all happening, but there is no doer thereof. So essentially it's arising, but there is no doer, which is in, how can I say? There's nothing there doing that. It's a happening, like an event. Yeah? That will keep going, by the way. A lot of people think that if you see see from the absolute, let's say, or from the listening, the open space, that that subject-object relationship is going to stop, like it's going to cease. That's a misunderstanding, I feel. Because there is no doer of the two-ness. There's just two-ness arising within open space. And because there is no doer, it's going to continue to happen. Just because you might see that you're not of that subject-object two-ness, it will not stop that two-ness from arising. And it will probably keep arising the same way it's always been arising. That's good. Like I noticed, talk about this thing from Tibetan Buddhism called the hungry ghost. I'm just going to make sure this thing is still going here. Yeah, okay. Talk about this hungry ghost idea. I don't know, I haven't studied Tibetan Buddhism that in depth or anything in the past or read about it now there really, but there's this idea there of the hungry ghost, and I think it's got like a huge belly. It's got a huge belly and a really small mouth. Yeah. This is like the head in my experience. So my whole life has been acquisition, constantly moving towards acquiring more. Now I noticed later that acquisition would never be fulfilled in many ways. Like the head would never acquire enough. I could never get enough. Like when I was a kid, I wanted to be a professional musician. That happened, and then I wanted more of that, yeah? And then this would go on with relationships and drinking, money. Money would never be enough money. So I want to hit this goal, and then, okay, I need more, yeah, more. So this to me is how I would kind of understand this hungry ghost idea. The hungry ghost is never fulfilled. Mostly because what it's feeding on from the world of two-ness is empty. Nothing has inherently any meaning. My head is giving things meaning. Let's say money. My head gives money a bunch of meaning. But it doesn't mean that money has any meaning besides what my head is saying it has, yeah? So really, money is empty. It's an empty thing. It doesn't fulfill, it can't fill or feed, let's say fill up the hungry ghost, because it's empty, yeah? So that goes for everything that's going on, essentially. Nothing has any meaning. It's all empty of meaning until my head gives it meaning. So it's really the giving of meaning which is creating the craving for the hungry ghost in many ways. Because the head thinks if it gets enough of what it's giving meaning to, then happiness or let's say fulfillment or whatever. But it's a ghost, yes? Because also the head is a ghost in itself. So the things you're trying to attain are empty, but also the mental system presenting me as a me is empty. Yeah? So it's all empty. And in that way it can't be fulfilled by getting enough, because it's getting enough of nothing, you see. So this idea of a hungry ghost always landed really well, I feel, for me, because it still goes on. This is the thing. And when a hungry ghost gets a hold of spirituality, it's like as bad as alcoholism in many ways, because there's more books and there's more retreats, and then there's teachers going, yeah, you have to keep doing more and more and more and more, and that hungry ghost goes off the rails with spirituality, because it will just constantly keep trying to eat more and more and more spirituality as if it's going to get somewhere. But spirituality is just as empty as the idea of money, yeah? It doesn't have more weight, essentially, than anything else. It's still the idea, spiritual ideas are only getting meaning from the mental system again, yeah? So they're as empty as money or cars or whatever else would be try to attain, except this attainment, when the hungry ghost gets a hold of spirituality, now it's a noble hungry ghost, yeah? So nobody is intervening in many ways. They're just saying, wow, they're on a real search for purity or whatever. But the hungry ghost is going off. This is what happened for me. The head was going off on spirituality. And rather than getting negated, it was just acquiring more and more and more and more. Yeah? So it's like the St. Francis quote, it's in self-forgetting that one finds. It's not in self-remembering. So remembering self would be more acquiring. It would be more acquisition or grasping or getting. And that's not what he's saying. It's in self-forgetting, forgetting, negating. Yeah? So this hungry ghost thing stood out for me. And when it hit spirituality, I didn't see that I was approaching spirituality as that hungry ghost. But that became quite clear when it became more and more uncomfortable, and there was this constant urge to get more books and more this and more that. Yeah. So rather than negating that hungry ghost, I was essentially going with the hungry ghost in the idea that the hungry ghost was going to be full at some point. Now that didn't happen with drinking, nor did it happen with relationships or money or anything else. But for some reason, when it came to spirituality, there was this idea that that hungry ghost was going to be full at some point and be negated. And that was a false idea. Because that hungry ghost, the one that's going towards alcohol and going towards, let's say, becoming a more famous musician or whatever, is the same movement that grabs a hold of spirituality. Yeah, it's the same head, and it's all under the guise of me. And with that word me, I am bound to the movements of that hungry ghost. And that thing can be, when you're bound to it, man, it becomes very uncomfortable in this constant movement to acquire. So a lot of the relief in negation and this message of not to is that you are not the head which is trying to constantly acquire. So when the mental system says I have to get more or do more, it says I'm bound or I need to be free. You are not that mental system. You are what is aware of or hearing that mental system. Yeah. Now a lot of people are listening to it because they're bound to it through the ownership of that mental system. And in that, they are constantly going with the hungry ghost, in hopes that it will eat enough, that it will stop craving. Yes? So get more stuff, more promotions, whatever they're going to get, and that hungry ghost will be fulfilled. Now that movement will never be fulfilled because it's a ghost. It's a non-existent thing. Yeah? So a non-existent thing is trying to fulfill itself with a bunch of non-existent things. And it doesn't work. That's why it's called the hungry ghost. Yeah? So the relief is to see that when the head goes, you don't have to go with it. That's why the movement of inquiry or whatever is just a negation. It's not an acquisition. There's not a, I'm not that, I'm not that. Oh, I am that. Yeah? There's not that last part. It's just not that, not that, not that. And then you land in what you are eventually. Because any other movement of acquisition is just going to bind you more to the hungry ghost. And the more bound you get to the hungry ghost, the more you are working for the wrong employer, as they would say in recovery. So the hungry ghost will have you constantly searching for more. And that becomes exhausting. And hopefully it becomes exhausting enough and fails enough that you see the hungry ghost, yeah, in all of its glory. And you see that no matter how much it says, how much your head says it needs to acquire and get, it's never going to be enough. It's always going to pop onto the next thing. But you are not of that head. So in a way, let it be the hungry ghost and let it constantly crave. But you don't have to go with it, and that's the relief. And it can even go beyond the head, where the senses are also very hungry. Yeah? The eyes grab onto objects, you are not the eyes. The ears grab onto sounds, you are not the ears. So the grasping of the hungry ghost pops up in a lot of places. But the main one, I feel, is the head. The head is going off. The mental system is constantly wanting more and more. And it will never be fulfilled, because what it's trying to fill itself on is empty. It has no meaning. The head is giving things meaning and then saying, okay, if I get more of that stuff that has meaning, I'll be fulfilled. But it has no meaning. It only has meaning from the mental. And that will go on. So in many ways, the bondage of self is being bound to that constant process of acquisition through the idea that what is trying to acquire more is you. And that's what the two-ness negates. The not-two-ness, I should say, negates. You are not that hungry ghost. There is a hungry ghost, but you are not that. Yeah. When the eyes are grabbing onto objects, they're hungry, you're not the eyes. Ears grab onto sound, you're not the ears. The mental system is constantly craving more stimulus, this way, this way, this way, this way. You are not the one that's arising to. The bondage is the identification with or as the hungry ghost. So if you go back to that St. Francis of Assisi thing, it's in self-forgetting that one finds. That's in the step 11 prayer of the 12 steps. In self-forgetting. It's not that you're going to acquire becoming a self. There is no self. Yeah? So you can't acquire one. It's in the forgetting the idea. It's in negating the idea of you being that hungry ghost that one finds. Now, what is found is what you already are. It's just through the negation of what you're not, and you will land where you are, because where else could you go? It's in self-forgetting that one finds. So it's very direct in this way, that there's no room in many ways in inquiry, or even in that statement in self-forgetting one finds, of making a move. Whatever makes a move to go, okay, I have to meditate more, I got to focus on this more, I got to do this more. Those are all moves, yeah? Those are all moves from the sense of two-ness. There's a sense of I needing to obtain something. Well, you are not that I. That's why the question of Ramana is, who am I? Because it sits you back before the head goes and tries to obtain. Yeah? And then when the head goes, well, I'm suffering, I have this, and I need to get into this and this and this, you are not doing that movement. You are not of that movement. So it shuts a lot down, you see? Because as soon as the head makes a move, as soon as it like puts its work pants on to go do a bunch of stuff, that gets negated as what you are. So rather than going with it and what it's saying, you see that you're not it because you can see it, essentially. It's just like what is being heard is not what is hearing. So the hungry ghost thing is great. But the thing that is a misunderstanding, at least it was for me, is that the hungry ghost is then going to stop. And that doesn't seem to happen. That hungry ghost of the head keeps saying, you need more, you have to do this, you haven't done enough today, you've got to work harder, more meditation. Yeah? I'm stuck. The thing about the message of not to is you don't get it. That's the thing. It's not something that you acquire or you have to work harder to obtain, yeah? You are what you're looking for. This is about seeing what you are not, which you also don't have to work to do because you can see what you're not. You can see the head, you can see the sense of doership, you can see all this stuff we're talking about. That's why when the head picks up its work pants to go another retreat, nothing, this, you don't go with it, you see? It gets negated as what you are. Otherwise, it's going to have you chasing freedom or liberation or whatever forever. But the head won't get it, you see? The mental system is of two-ness. So it can only go as far as that. It can only go as far as subject-object. It can't go beyond that. That's why they say sometimes you're not going to get this. Because you, as a body, are not going to get it. Yeah, you see what I'm talking about with the hungry ghost. Yeah, because you see it, it's shown that you are not it, because there's a seeing of it from before it. So you must be before it, which is what it's seeing. Yeah, these talks are essentially about what you're not. They're not about what we're trying to become or what we already are, because you are that now. They're about seeing what you're not. And the hungry ghost thing highlights that a lot. Because my head is not unique. So the mental system is always wanting more. It's constantly trying to grab onto more from the idea that it's going to be fulfilled when it gets that. But what it's trying to get is empty, and it's empty. Yeah? So it never gets enough because it's an empty movement. You are not of the movement when it's trying to get, yeah? But you are not the head. So the head doesn't get this message. It tries to keep obtaining. it tries to keep going. And it will continue to do that because it's conditioned to do that. Because you're not the doer of all of this trying to gain and trying to get. You're not doing that. It's conditioned. It's part of the system, let's say, yeah? So to expect the system to understand, it's essentially not going to understand. It's just going to keep saying, I got to do more. Yeah? And it's great in a way because every time it pops up, you see it and it gets negated. Yeah? It's in self-forgetting that one finds. It's in negating that movement as what you are, and you can only land in what always is, which is now, essentially. If you notice your head, it's always past and future. It's trying to get away from the past, and it's trying to obtain what it thinks it's going to get in the future that is going to make it happy or fulfilled or whatever the head is going to say, yeah? It's a hungry ghost. Get away from this and get into this. Constant movement. That becomes super exhausting because it's a never-ending thing, because it's emptiness both ways. So it's beautiful when it pops up because you can see what you're not, essentially, constantly. And then it's only really getting life because the mental system is empty as well. There is no doer there. It's only getting life because we are listening to it. So when the head says you have to do more and get there, or you have to get away from this, it only keeps popping up with these ideas because you're listening to it. Because it's empty. So as soon as you stop listening to it, it kind of stops arising in many ways. And then it'll pop up again. It's like you get big gaps, you know? And then it'll come up again and say, but you're still worthless. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you need to get more of this. Yeah, you still should be shameful for 20 years ago, and you gotta work. You gotta do all kinds of stuff and make $1 million here. Yes, okay. And you see it all happen, yeah? You see the head pronounce past and future from the current nowness. From the space of ever-present nowness moves through the ideas of past and future. Through the space of ever-present nowness moves through the ideas of past and future. So this message brought a lot of relief, let's say, for me, because it was highlighting that the system, the mental head, which was trying to constantly acquire, which is trying to constantly acquire things. It highlighted that. Yeah? But it didn't highlight it in the way that I usually have seen it, or had read about it or whatever, which was usually your head is trying to constantly acquire. Okay, now you're going to practice for 3,000 years, and then you're going to be purified enough that it will stop acquiring. This message was counter to that. Yeah, it was like it highlighted something else. It said, okay, the head is always trying to acquire. Yes, you're not that head. And then it wasn't, well, if you purify enough, you'll be free in 3,000 years, yeah? It wasn't that. It said, no, you are of freedom now. You are of peace now. And what is trying to continuously acquire, you are not. So then it goes back to the Ramana statement, all that needs to be seen is the unreal, which is what you are not. You are taking yourself you are taking the unreal to be real. And the unreal wants to constantly become real, which it cannot do. The unreal, the J, wants to become reality. But the system of J, which is in two-ness, cannot get out of that system. self cannot get out of self, as they say in 12 steps. Yes? So then this message says all that needs to be done is to see the unreal, which you, by the way, are currently taking to be real. This body and this head are taken to be reality. And then this message is just giving you a little bit of a different view, yeah? By the way, that's not reality, nor is it going to become reality. You are already reality, and you see the unreal from reality. That's why it's just a negation, because you are reality now. But being identified with what is unreal and then trying to become reality as what's unreal doesn't work, yeah? That would be more acquisition. That would be more acquiring or becoming. So then this message came in and said, what is trying to acquire or become, you are not that. And when you see the unreal as unreal, you can only land in the real, which is the ever-present space which past and present, future are moving through. But it's not through a bunch of acquisition, you see? So when the mental system says, okay, I got to do more and I got to acquire and stuff, that gets negated. The senses get negated as your nature. It's because they're chasing objects and things. So in self-forgetting one finds, all that is required is to see the unreal from the stance of reality. It's not becoming reality, you are reality now. So it's seeing the unreal as unreal, and it will sit you into reality. Those are not statements of action, let's say, or like forward movement, yeah? They are statements of regression in many ways. You're taking yourself to be what is unreal, but you are taking it to be real. So this message is saying that's the unreal. And the unreal is not going to become real. You are reality now. It's like there's a Nisargadatta thing. Let's see if I can find it here in my deep scriptures. Alright, Nisargadatta says this. After listening to my talks, do you acquire knowledge, or is whatever knowledge you had being dissolved? It's being dissolved. So the message of not to, the relief comes from the not acquiring knowledge. It's from dissolving the knowledge that you think you have. Yeah? Because what is acquiring knowledge is the mental. And that knowledge, by the way, it will never get enough. Yeah? So you'll see oftentimes people, well, I'm a lifetime student of this. Well, that sounds terrible to me. Because that's a ton of work and acquiring to get peace. So when you come to this message, in my experience, the relief is from that dissolving of the knowledge that I thought I was getting, yeah? And there was a time when I was reading tons of books, and I can't remember anything from them books. I thought I was going to hold on to all that. And then all of that knowledge was going to build into this like super knowledge ball, and that would be purification, and then I would get peace, yeah? But the knowledge was binding me to the sense of being the one who has the knowledge. And that sense of being the one who has the knowledge never stops. The same way it never stops with drinking, it will never stop with depression, it will never stop with money. It just will want more constantly. Yeah, and that moreness will get more and more uncomfortable, hopefully to the point where it becomes uncomfortable enough that you see the failure in all of its glory, and then it goes perfect. That doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Because what it's trying to get a hold of is empty. But it will continue to try to get a hold of it. So the only movement can be negation. If there's an idea that your head is going to get enough of something eventually, and then it will slow down or stop or whatever, this is false, because it's a hungry ghost. It's a ghost, for one, meaning it's a non-existent thing. This idea of you, there's nothing in this body which is trying to acquire a bunch of stuff. It's an idea. That idea of you is a ghost, because it ain't there. Huh? And then that ghost, which is not actually there, is a movement, an activity of the head, is very hungry. Endlessly hungry. And it can't eat enough. So if you're living under the bondage of that ghost, then you are going to be living in a life of constant acquisition without, it's like Alan Watts says, all retch and no vomit, yes? The life will become constant acquisition. I need to get out of this and I need to get into this. The head will continue to do that endlessly in my experience. And if you're living under that head, it becomes very, very rough. And if that head gets a hold of spirituality or the idea of healing, you are going to be healing endlessly for endless eons. And then you will do those eons of healing and spend whatever you're going to spend and do whatever you're going to do. And then the head will say more. You didn't do enough. You got to do more. There's the hungry ghost yet again. Yeah, it will never stop. But you are not of that hungry ghost. So, it's a negation. Self-forgetting that one finds. Seeing the unreal from the real. Not becoming reality. You are reality now. That's a done deal. But you are identified with the unreal. Meaning what is not real, what is not of reality, this thing, yeah? And by the way, reality, I'll mention if you don't know this language, reality is its own existence. This does not have its own inherent existence. This body, yes? It doesn't have its own existence, nor does this mental movement, which we would call me. That doesn't have its own existence either. That is a conditioned mental movement. It's like the Course in Miracles, you can only see the past, yeah? The head is only perceiving everything right now from past information. It's conditioned movement. So, that conditioned movement will constantly try to acquire from its conditioning. You are not of that, yes? So reality, sorry, that was what we were saying. Reality would be something that is self-existent, which would be the space. You are not space, by the way, but it's like the Tibetans say, it's experience as space, whatever experience. You are the space in which past and present moves through. You are the ever-present no-thing nowness that all the ideas and things of past and present move through. That open nowness is ever-present. That would be existence. Yes? So, we are taking this to be reality. Existence equals sign reality. We are taking this to be reality, which it is not. This is the unreal. Yes? This is not a separate, independent thing. The head is telling you you are a separate, independent thing, but it is not. Yes? You are not separate, independent thing. So, this is the unreal, and we are currently taking it to be real. Because the head has us in the seat of I, or me, and that me comes with the attachment to this body. Me, body, this is taken to be real from the stance of me. But me, there is no me. Yeah, it's just a movement. It's an idea moving through this thing which is called me. And that sense of me is taking itself to be reality. So this message is saying, okay, that's fine, but you are not that. That is of the unreal. And by seeing the unreal as unreal, you will sit back into guess what? Reality. Am I going to become reality by acquiring? No. What is trying to acquire is of the unreal, and it cannot become real. It cannot become reality. You are already reality. It is by seeing the unreal, the hungry ghost which is constantly trying to acquire, you see that you are not that. Yes? And then you will sit into reality which you are already of before the misidentification with what is unreal. So that put into stark contrast for me every other message that I was coming across, which was get more, do more. This head is going to become non-judgmentally compassionate. That failed. That failed quite badly. Because it's obtuse. This is a judgmental system. So it can't do that. So rather than somebody going, no, you have to acquire more, or why aren't you compassionate yet? You've done so much. Or you need to do more. You should be purified. You're there, blah, blah. But there is no you, the thing. Yeah, it's conditioned. So I thought conditioning was going to change, and it didn't change. Why? Because it's conditioned. There's no doer doing that conditioning. I'm listening to that friggin' conditioning from the seat of reality. Yeah? And because I was listening to it, it had me constantly running under the guise of the ghost. The ghost, the ghost, the ghost. Yeah. So it's in self-forgetting that one finds. It's not in acquiring or self-remembering that one finds. It's in the who is the I or the me, which is constantly trying to become or get out of something. In self-forgetting one finds. See the unreal as unreal, and you can only sit into what you already are, which is reality. And then two-ness comes and goes through the field of ever-present now-ness, essentially. Yes? This is why all is one, because it all arises within the same field. And none of this life can happen without that open nowness in which it arises. Yeah. Okay. Any questions? If there's anything anybody wants to ask, you could chuck it in the chat here. That's why we do these talks, because the amount of relief that came from seeing that the constant acquisition would fail. And to see that what you and I are is not of that acquiring nature was extremely relieving. Because you can stop working for the wrong employer, as they say in recovery. The employer of the head has you constantly working to become something that you can't become as a body. But if you're listening to this employer, you're trying to become that as a body, and it doesn't work. The head is trying to make the body into this ethereal body. Yes, it's trying to acquire more or enough to make the head into this ethereal, or the body, into many ways open space. Like the body's going to become open space. It's going to fail because it can't do it. Yeah, this is obtuseness. This is obtuseness. So negation is the only thing, really. And when you can stop working for that wrong employer of constant acquisition, there's a lot of relief of that. Because the head has got us working super, super hard, way overworking the body and the mind. It's overworking, the senses are overworking, and it creates a bunch of tension in the physical and the mental. Creates a bunch of anxiety, and to be relieved of that without really doing a ton of stuff is something amazing. And it's not that you become relieved from it, yeah? This message is not about, it's about being free from self, from the idea of self, not as self. Self can't become free, yeah, because it's a non-existent thing. So it's empty, really. Okay, but I'm just going to look at the thing here. I need to keep self-inquiring until everything is clean, because it keeps coming. Things keep coming back. Things will continually come back in the mental because you're not doing it. So it's like Ramana says, the who am I thing is not to be repeated like a mantra, yeah? He has something he says where he says essentially, if you repeat who am I over and over again, it's like a drunk man staggering and stuttering or something, he says like this. So the thing is, of that self-inquiry, things will keep coming back because you're not doing them, yes? So the real inquiry is not into the thoughts, it's into the thinker. You have to inquire into the sense of me or I. It's not inquiring into the thinking. Why am I thinking this? Why am I thinking that? Why is this going this way? Why is that going that way? That is not the inquiry. The inquiry is, who is those thoughts arising to? Huh? To see that when the idea of me or I comes up, you are not that me or I, negates your bondage to what comes after that sense of I. And it will keep coming up. Yeah? But it's like Ramana says, you root out the I. The thoughts and the feelings and sensations and things are quite irrelevant in many ways. Irrelevant in that they're going to keep coming up because they're conditioned. You're not doing that movement. Yeah? So this is the big misunderstanding, I feel, in many ways. The big misunderstanding is that the head is going to stop. It's not going to stop. You're going to see that what it's arising to isn't there. That the sense of me being the one who these thoughts are arising to, that those thoughts, that sense of me is another thought, essentially. Yeah? And then when it arises again, you stop going with it because you've seen through the thing. So if inquiry is into why am I thinking this and this, that is not inquiry. That's self-obsession in many ways. And that's going to reinduce more anxiety. The inquiry is, who is those thoughts arising to? They're arising to me. What is that me? Is there a me inside the body? What is that? Ramana would say, don't leave the point of I. Yeah? Stay on the I thought. Who? I. Who is this sensation arising to? Me. That's the bondage. The bondage is not to the contents of your experience. It's to the idea that it's your experience. That's the bondage of self. It's not to the contents of your experience. The contents of your experience are going to continue. Yes? The bondage of self is to the idea that it's your experience. It's the me. So yeah. If you leave that sense and start chasing the contents of experience, you are already off the mark. The head's got you. There's only one question. This is the beauty about this thing. Your mental system has tons of questions and ideas. Yes? It has tons of them. Your head will just constantly keep going off, which it will keep doing because it's conditioned this way. Yeah? But who is that arising to? So this puts into stark contrast a lot of other things, because there's only one question. Your head has 1,000 questions, but all of those questions only point to one thing. Who is asking that question? Who wants to know? Who is thinking that thought? Who is feeling that feeling? I, me. That I is the bondage of self. Do not leave that point. Investigate that point. I only. Yeah? And then whatever comes after that I, you will not be so bound to. That is the relief. The head going off and trying to constantly acquire more and more and more is my bondage on that is only bound from the sense that those thoughts and acquisition are mine. If those thoughts are not my thoughts, if those thoughts are just arising and the sense of me is one of those thoughts, then they can try to acquire whatever they want. I don't really care. That is the relief. And then you only land in reality, nowness. So the thinking is going to keep coming back. But the inquiry is to who is that thinking arising to? It's the sense of you which is the bondage. The sense of you has you bound to whatever comes after that. And everything comes after the sense of me. Everything. World, relationships, ideas, thoughts, feelings, sensations. Those all come after the sense of me. They're all based on me. Without the self-centeredness of me, the stuff that comes after is just happening. So this is not about bettering the sense of me. It's about seeing that there is no me. Yeah? It's like the 12 steps are not a system of bettering. They're a loss of faith in the in self-centeredness put into God. When that faith is put into God, or whatever higher power you want to call it, yeah, there's faith lost in self-centeredness and the life goes better. This is not about bettering the me. Me will take the me-ness, the individuality, will be influenced by seeing that there is no me. Meaning it loses all of its pull, and then you sit in the reality of now. And then in a way things get cleaned on their own without you doing it. As soon as I get involved, things seem to get very messy, yeah, because I'm not managerial quality. All right. Let's see, how do we start the process of transitioning? Wrong relationships. Who? So I'm just looking at this message here from Kay. How do we start the process? Yeah. Who thinks they're in wrong employment, wrong relationships, and wrong associations? Yeah, it comes back to the same thing. The thing about that is that there's the sense that you know what you need and don't need. Now that sense of knowing, like you know the right job or the right relationship or the right associations, I know that. That knowing is based on the conditioning of your head. So I can only speak from my own experience, but when I think that I know something, it is based on my own conditioning or interpretation of life. Yes? That interpretation of life is distorting life. So my head says I'm in the wrong job, in the wrong this, in the wrong that. That's all based on the sense of me. Yeah, like we just talked about. That's fine. The thing is, when I feel I know something, I can only know it from my past. Yeah? So I can only speak to my own experience on that one, okay? But what these talks point to is, who is it that thinks they're in the wrong job, wrong relationships, wrong associations? It's you. Yeah? So the bondage of the suffering from those jobs, relationships, and associations is based on that you're the one suffering. So the investigation here is into that you-ness. Now, if you are not that you-ness, which feels you're in the wrong job, relationships, and associations, are they the wrong jobs, relationships, and associations? I don't know the answer. Yeah, I'm not giving you an answer. I'm just saying the point of inquiry here stays on who is it that wants out of that job? Who is it that wants out of that relationships? And who is it that has all the opinions about those associations? It's you, the sense of me. Yeah? This is inquiring into that sense of me. Because if a job is a job, it's just a job. But if it's your job, it comes with a bunch of meaning. If a relationship is just a relationship, it's just a relationship. But your relationships seem to have tons of meaning. Now, relationships are just as empty whether they're yours or anybody else's, yeah. But it's the weight of the mental system, and the weight of me is very heavy. You see? So the inquiry there is, who is it that feels they're in the wrong job, relationships, and associations? Because if there's a sense of you that feels that, and you want to get out. Now the thing is that from my experience in this body, when I get out of those ones, I'm going to want out of the next ones. And then I want out of the next ones, and the next ones, and the next ones. This is part of the hungry ghost in this head, here. Yeah? I want out of this relationship, and then I want into this one. And when I get into this one, I want out of this one and into this one. This is the obsession or the addiction of the hungry ghost. That is the running which has become super exhausting in the past, I feel. So the real question is who? Because you leave the job that you think is wrong, you get into another one, the countdown is on before the head goes, this is the wrong job, now I got to get into this one. Now I have to get into a more noble job. Or now I have to do something that has more meaning. But the head is what's giving the meaning, you see? So if you're tied to the head, it's going to have you running. Either way, it's going to have you running. This message is about, at least for me, peace and relief, which is a stopping of the running, despite the circumstances and situations. You are before or free of those circumstances and situations. So changing the employment, the relationships and associations, it may better this body's life a little bit, but it may not. Yeah? Because you're still bound to this life as a body, and you are not of the body. So really the process of transitioning from those things would be of the divine spirit, let's say. You end up where you end up, but it's the seeing that there's no doer of that job, those relationships, or those associations, and that you're not bound to those, and then they can end up wherever they end up. So if you have a follow-up question on that, Kay, please ask. But the main point of inquiry is, who is it that thinks they're in wrong employment? Who is it that thinks they're in wrong relationships and wrong associations? Because we don't really see, from the myopic point of view of self-centeredness, we don't really see the whole picture, yeah? Because the head has us looking through the eyes of self-centeredness, meaning everything as it reflects to me, to Jay, yeah? So when Jay goes to work, oh, I hate this job, but the Jayness does not see the effect of that job, let's say, beyond his own friggin' eyes. Like, it doesn't pay me enough, or the people here suck. He doesn't see the positive effect it might be having on this, or this, or this, or this, or this, yeah? Because it's a self-centered system. You're not doing the self-centeredness. That's what you're inquiring into. So, okay, yeah. This is, what is it? Okay, good. The thing, the relief of the message, in my experience, is the direct one-pointedness of it. Who? Everything comes back to the sense of I. The sense of you is what has you bound to the ideas, the opinions. That they're your things. So it's very clear in that way. It's like the 12 steps to me are very clear and direct. Now the mental system is not clear and direct at all. The mental system has got 1,000 different things going on. But the message of the 12 steps is self-centeredness is what's failed you. Very, very obvious, very direct, clear. The message of not two is whatever comes up as two-ness is not you. So there's a job and there's a sense of you. Now the job only gets meaning from the head. Yeah? The head only gets meaning because it seems to be your head. So this inquiry is into who? Because all of that stuff seems to be arising to you. So there's like all of these events happening, and they seem to be rotating around the sense of you. Yeah? It's like you are the sun, and the gravity of you has everything rotating around it. But the you that you're taking yourself to be, you are not. So when you see that you're not that you, and that it's part of the rotating, yeah, a lot of the stuff that's based on you loses a lot of its weight. And then maybe the job is not so bad. Maybe the relationships are not so bad. And if they need to change, something will change them. Yeah? But it's not based on you trying to get out of or into something else. It's all based on the sense of me. I don't want to go to work. I do want to go to work. I. And that the head will keep flipping back and forth. This is terrible, this isn't so bad. This is terrible, this isn't so bad. Yeah? But you are not of that movement. So the inquiry is into that I-ness. Okay. In my experience, I found self-will is following. So if there's any other questions, please feel free to ask. So removing I makes it easier to make sound decisions. That's good. Well, there is no I, yeah? This is why the inquiry has to be seen through in many ways. The sense of I, or individuality, is a thought. You and I, at best, are concepts. J is a concept, yeah? There's no thing called J. J is an idea. And that idea is based on past. Yeah, this is why the head is bound to time and space. So J was somewhere else and grew up in the past through memory, yeah? So at best, J is a concept based on memory. J was this, and now is this, and will be this. All of that is based on me. Me. But me is a concept. So you can't remove the me. You see that you are a concept, that there's nothing inside of this body which is you. There's no thing in here. When you die and they cut you open, they don't take you out, yeah? So you don't have to remove the sense of I. It's a seeing that when the head says me, it's another thought with all the other thoughts, yes? And then as far as decisions, wow, there is no doer of decisions. So decisions that you have made are based on conditioning of the head. You are bound seemingly to that conditioning through the sense of I. Now the head has you already as a body. That's why Ramana says presupposing the existence of a non-existent thing. The non-existent thing is J. But the head, the mental system, has you presupposed as a non-existent thing. Meaning the mental system has you as a thing. This body as a thing. Yeah? And it says you are that thing. Your mental system says that. So if you're living as that mental system, you're living as this thing, and there's a sense that you are making decisions. But there is no I. There is no self. Yes, those decisions are conditioned. You feel like you're making decisions, but there is no doer. So you can't remove I, because there is no I. It's just an idea. Yeah? You see that the sense of you is a presupposed concept, just like the sense of everything else. That's why negation is the only way. Because the sense of I is not going to become not that, because it's a non-existent thing. So you see, what you are aware of is not what is aware. What is being perceived is not what is perceiving. So the weight of sound or unsound decisions is all based on the your decisions, yeah. So again, it comes back to who. Who wants to remove the I, and who wants to keep the I? I. You are not of that, you see? And then in my experience, this life smooths out. Because I'm no longer trying to manipulate it or squirm. The head is squirming. It's anxious, yeah? It's trying to get in and out. It's trying to do all these things. But there's a sense that it's arising to you. And you are not that. You are of the unbound or the unborn, yeah? You are of the unborn. So what dies and what is born is not you, essentially. That's the relief of this. So when the head goes, okay, I have to remove I, you don't go with that because you're not the head. Yeah? And then it goes, well, you're not the I. What's before that? This is like the inquiry. Where does I arise from inside the body? If you inquire inside the body, where is the sense of me? Who is the one who wants to make sound decisions? And who is the one who's either going to suffer or benefit from those decisions? Me. Yeah, so you're back there. Me. And then the head will keep going. It's never going to stop. The mental system is going to keep going. Yeah. So you can keep coming to talks like this and then it keeps getting hit. That's very helpful. Inquiry can be helpful because it just keeps the view on the sense of me. I'm very uncomfortable. I'm super comfortable. Both based on the sense of I. Yeah. And then, okay, I have to remove that thought. Well, who thinks they have to remove the I is I again. Yeah? You can see it beautifully in that. I have to remove the I. Self can't get out of self. So the mental system is not going to get out of itself. You are not going to get out of the sense of you. The solution is that you are not that sense. Yeah? The you-ness, J is not getting out of J-ness. I am not of J-ness is the solution. J tried to get out of J forever and is continually doing that. But I am not of J-ness. Yeah? So there's no acquisition there. There's just negation. There's just okay, whatever is being perceived is not what is perceiving. I can perceive the sense of J trying to get out of J. And I can perceive the sense of J trying to get into other things. You can see it. Yeah, if you can see it, you must not be it because there's a seeing of it. Closer maybe. Yeah, just trying to be instead of constantly do. But if you try to be, then now there's a sense of you again trying to be. So who is the one trying to be? I am. That I, it's like the Ramana thing or Nisara or any of them. They say be still. You don't have to do anything, just be still. Yeah? Now if you try to do that, whatever cannot stay still is what you're not. Yeah? So you sit down, your thinking might stop for 10 seconds if you're lucky. That'd be a long stint. That'd be a long pause, 10 seconds. Yeah? So you get 10 seconds, then the head comes back online. Okay? When that moves, you must not be that because you are of stillness. The body's going to move, the heart's beating, the breath is moving. You must not be all of those things. Huh? So it's not a trying to be. What you are is beingness, being ourselves reality now. Yeah? And then what's constantly doing is going to keep doing. But you are not what is doing. So maybe try to sit with that because that seems to work for you, okay? Trying to be. Yeah? So try to be, and then whatever cannot stay still and be, you are not that. Yeah, very good. That would be a negation. So whatever cannot be still. Yeah? When Ramana is saying be still, he's not saying sit still with your body. Hold your breath. Close your eyes. Don't move. Yeah? This is the negation. Be still. Whatever cannot be still, you are not. So you negate that as what you are. Yes, you do feel like you are what cannot be still. That is true. So it needs to be negated. So when you sit down and you say, okay, I'm going to be still, what cannot stay still, you are not. So there is a sense of individuality. There's a feeling that you are an individual. But that sense is not a fact. Yes? So whatever cannot be still is not your nature. That is not of your true nature. If you are stillness, then when you sit down, whatever cannot be still is negated as what you are. You don't try to make it still. That would be acquiring. Yes? That would be trying to acquire stillness as something that's ever moving. That will not work. That will fail. Because this is an agitated system. It cannot stay still. But you are of stillness. So when you sit down and you say, okay, I have to just be. What is trying to be cannot be. You are of beingness. What moves, which it will move, you don't try to make it still. You see that you're not that. That's all. That's all. And then when you try to focus on the stillness, you will not be able to hold that focus. Because the sense of you that is trying to focus on the stillness cannot hold still. Yes? But there is an openness before what is trying to hold still. So go ahead, try to focus on stillness. The sense of you will not be able to hold that focus. And when it moves, that will say, okay, I can negate that as what I am. It's just a negation, no acquisition. There's no acquiring here. There's no affirmative movement. There's no I'm gonna get. Whatever moves, you are not that.